Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, Podsters or Podderoonies, if you prefer. We are back again for another episode this month as the drama is out, and one of the stars is Robert Pattinson, but the other star is Zendaya. So we'll be focusing our attentions on Zendaya. If you're really interested in Robert Pattinson, we have done a Robert Pattinson episode as well, so do check that one out. For this week, we are talking Zendaya movies, and I have a guest with me. This time, though, not a League member, a member of the League of Podcasts, but a debutant. We have Derick from the Underrated podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here and talking about some Zendaya movies.
Awesome. So this is your opportunity to talk about your podcast, and where can we find you, sir?
Yeah, so I do a podcast, as you mentioned, called the Underrated Movie Podcast, where neither of the films that we'll be talking about today will be, would have been featured on it, because these are movies that are more underrated, under the radar, underappreciated. So things that maybe deserve a little bit more love. You know, the first episode we ever did was Speed Racer, and I do episodes every other Monday, so you can just find that by looking up Underrated Movie Podcast, however you're listening to this. And I'm always looking for suggestions. If people have a movie out there that they think, deserves more praise, let me know.
Yeah, the films we'll be talking about today certainly aren't underrated. They're very, very rated.
Yes.
Highly rated.
Yes.
As we're in kind of, Oscars as we record tonight.
Yeah.
But the drama is coming out, starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. It's kind of feels like one of those dark comedies in terms of like a couple going through a troubled marriage.
Yeah.
So what do we make of the drama then, Derick?
And it looks interesting. I think that the way they've been marketing it has been really interesting, because they've like, rather than doing a lot of traditional trailers and stuff, I mean, there's still been some of that, but they took out like a engagement announcement in, a magazine, like the Boston Globe, I think. There's like an actual website you can go on and RSVP for their wedding. But yeah, like these are both actors that I like quite a bit. I think that they are uniquely suited to have a very good, kind of dark comedic styling between the two of them. So, obviously we just got to see Pattinson play off of another favorite actress of mine, Jennifer Lawrence. So I would love to see now what he does with Zendaya.
Yeah, she's got a fascinating career at the moment. It's really kind of starting to blossom a little bit. Certainly with, her last 2 films we'll be talking about.
Yeah, both came out in 2024. So yeah.
Obviously she kind of, I guess she broke out with the Spider-Man films post Disney Channel stuff.
Mm-hmm. And Euphoria there in the middle too.
Yeah. And then, Euphoria was certainly the TV show that really showed off her acting chops for sure. So, and then obviously Dune Part 1, very small role in that. But yeah, but then you've got things like, what was the other thing she was in with John David Washington? Malcolm and Marie.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, another kind of lesser film, I guess, on her CV, but another film where she's trying different things and not really, going down the career trajectory that you would expect for someone like her. So yeah, she's doing lots of different things, and I think, I am excited for the drama. I think Zendaya and Robert Pattinson is quite a good, interesting matchup, because, as you say, Pattinson has done some really interesting stuff as well, and he's not obviously afraid of doing like big movies as well with big directors. So, and very, very small films as well. Like, I'm a big fan of things like High Life and what was the Safdie Brothers one? Just got right now.
I'm totally, because I didn't see it. I remember when it came out. I was kind of like, because I feel like he was like, I'm gonna do my Twilight so that I can be in all these weird indies, you know, and he still likes big budget movies. Like he still works with, you know, Matt Reeves for like with the Batman and stuff. But I think he also is like, yeah, well, I not that it's one for them, one for me, because I do think he legitimately enjoys being Batman. But he also is like, he has these indie sensibilities, wants to work with these, you know, like, you know, directors that aren't big blockbuster names necessarily.
Yeah, so I think they kind of have similar. Obviously, Pattinson has had more opportunities so far, slightly older, I guess, and Zendaya is starting to become like a proper huge star, I think, within the movie world. So let's go with your choice first then, Derick. What did you go for Zendaya movies?
Yeah, so my pick was Luca Guadagnino's 2024 film, Tennis Sexual Drama Challengers. It was my pick.
Awesome. So were there any other films in contention for you, or was it pretty much just this one?
It was honestly pretty much this one, you know, like I love her in the Spider-Man films and she's given good performances and plenty of other stuff, but this is what is my favorite film of the year that year. It's one of my favorite films in recent memory. I absolutely love this movie, and you know, it's definitely a trifecta of the three of them, but when I think of a Zendaya performance, you know, no disrespect to MJ, but this is what I think of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is certainly the film where she's sort of come of age, if you will, as an actress, and really showing her acting chops, and really, it really feels like she's got a proper meaty lead role here. A lot of her other films, she's certainly not the lead, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit with my choice. But yeah, she's fantastic in this. I mean, the poster is just her face, like completely filling the frame with the sunglasses, and you've got, you know, the two other actors in the lenses of the sunglasses. So yeah, and it's such a great poster.
It's a really great poster, and yeah, I think at the time too, she's the biggest name. Like, I think Mike Feist definitely in the intervening year has become a much bigger name. You know, he was kind of had like a 2025 where he was in like 5 things, and obviously he's going to be, you know, at least one of the co-leads in Spielberg's Disclosure Day. And Mike Feist is no slouch either, but I think it's just like, yeah, it's clear that she is the draw for this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens in Challengers, Derick?
So Challengers is a story that is told non-sequentially about 2 tennis-playing best friends who end up falling in love with the same female tennis prodigy. They all meet when they're about 18 or 19 years old. They meet her when they're about 18 or 19 years old. And they're all essentially in love with each other, for lack of a better way. But you kind of see it, like I said, it's cuts back and forth between these the 2 tennis guys played by Mike Feist and by Josh O'Connor as Patrick and Art. And it goes back and forth between a tennis match that is taking place between them in 2019 and their tennis careers and the interactions and relationships they've had, where they are each at certain points in relationships with Zendaya's character, Tashi Duncan. And the tennis is kind of a metaphor in this movie, I'll say.
Yeah. Back and forth between boyfriends,
right? A lot of sweat happening, a lot of that. That's very good.
A lot of head turning. Well, her head is not really turning. I kind of love those shots.
It's so good. You just everybody looking, and she's just looking straight on.
It's like, come on, guys, just get it over with.
Anyway. And it's just like, yeah, she has obviously feelings for both of them, but it's a Luca Guadagnino movie. There is a lot of, it's not even subtext. There's a lot of like queer text in this movie where it's like, these guys are almost definitely bisexual, like, you know, not even almost definitely, they are bisexual, and, you know, clearly have feelings and attraction towards each other, but they also have it towards her. And it's a true love triangle where they all are kind of like in love with each other and are attracted to each other. And it's just, you know, I can't remember what, I remember like one of the last trailers that dropped right before the movie was like, this is one of the sexiest movies ever made. And I kind of agree. Like, I'm like, all right, they're really they're going for it.
Yeah, well, it's a Luca Guadagnino film, I should say. So, I mean, is this one of his best, do you reckon? I think it's one of his best. For sure.
I would agree with that. I honestly haven't seen as much of his stuff as I should, especially after this one I was so impressed by. But I just love this movie. And part of it is because I am actually a tennis fan. So, like, you know, that's that. I think that tennis is done actually really well in this movie. It's done very smart where, you know, the tennis match itself is almost like I said, the tennis is a metaphor for like sex, obviously, but it's also, and, you know, the back and forth between, you know, these two people. But like the match itself, how it's, you know, it's a 3-set match that happens over the course of this movie. And the 3 sets are almost perfectly lined up to a 3-act structure. And then you have that little tie break at the end to kind of just be like almost the like last little post, you know, like the short little act 4. But, you know, you have one character who, when he wins that first set, you have, you know, Patrick wins the first set, which he's the one who is dating Tashi first. He's winning at the beginning. But then, Art comes back. He wins that second set. And, you know, then the third set, it's all tied up. So, you know, which mirrors the arc that these characters go through in the movie. It's really smart screenwriting. Yeah,
I really love the structure of this. Initial reactions, though, for you, like, what were your feelings coming out of it initially?
I remember my feelings coming out of it initially was kind of like, I was like, I have to process that. That was a whole thing. Because the way it ends, you know, is so just kind of, not abrupt, but it's because I don't think there's any other way it could end. But it catches you a little bit off guard that you're like, oh, that's how it ended. You know, wow, I need to think about that. And I immediately was like, I need to watch this movie again. So I remember like going and like, I was like, I got to watch this because I watched it with a friend, and then in theaters, and then when it dropped on Hulu, I was like, all right, I watched it alone. Then I watched it with my brother. I watched it with my girlfriend, who is interestingly enough bisexual, and I was like, what did you think of that movie? So, you know, like I was just like, I want to watch this so many times and get as many people's opinions on it as I can.
Initial reactions for me, I really loved it, and I get you what you're saying about kind of the fact that it kind of ends very abruptly, but I think that's kind of very much by design, not because there was not like no story left, because I think there probably was plenty of story after that. But like, I think that's kind of the whole point of the film is sort of all 3 of these characters almost coming together for their own love of tennis itself. It's just that kind of whole like crescendo of like, holy fuck, that was an amazing tennis match. You get that from Zendaya as well. Like she screams out like, come on, you know, when she, you know, frankly is kind of, before the match begins, is kind of done with both of them in a way.
Right. Yeah. She's just kind of, she just wants to see, you know, as she puts it, some good effing tennis, you know? I don't know about on the show, but
yeah, you can. Go for
it. Some good fucking tennis, you know, which is a great refrain that she says a couple times. And, you know, but she's kind of like, you know, she's kind of exhausted, you know, she knows that Art is kind of done with this, you know, she's kind of like, all right, Patrick, just throw the match. But she's just got so much passion for tennis, and more than anything, she wants to just play this tennis, be in this moment, but she can't. So she has to kind of, you know, vicariously live through, you know, her husband and make him into this great tennis player, which interestingly enough is a little inspired by greatest tennis player of all time, basically Roger Federer and his wife, who she was injured. So it draws a little bit from that. But yeah, when there is that last volley, and it is just such this great, interesting tennis, and it ends with them embracing, and as you said, her shouting "Come on," which is something that happens earlier in the film when she's playing that first match that they see. She shouts that out, and Art brings it up. He's like, "You shouted, come on," and she's kind of like, "Yeah." It was this moment where, you know, it was like a relationship between me and the other player. It was like we disappeared. It was, and so it's calling back to that. She's like, finally got this moment of just great fucking tennis again.
Yeah, definitely. And what I find interesting is I've seen this film a few times, so I still don't really know who won at the end. Who won?
That's the thing. That's the thing. I walked out of the movie. I was like, I was really expecting. I was like, I don't know who's gonna win, and then it just kind of ends without you knowing who won. And I'm like, I'm usually like not a fan of that. I'm usually like, give me an answer, but I'm like, I'm okay with that ambiguous.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter at all. To be honest, in the end. Yeah. I loved kind of the cold open where we kind of go straight into a tennis match, like between Mike Feist, who plays Art Donaldson, and Josh O'Connor, who plays Patrick Zweig. I think that's how you say it. And as you say, it's this very kind of small challenger event. There's like no dialogue at all apart from like the grunting and the score being called. It's almost like an actual tennis broadcast to begin with, where you have like the score come on screen. Then as soon as they get going, we have this kind of amazing like long pushing shot that goes straight past like the umpire's ear and across the court and focuses on like Zendaya's character Tashi, and like you have like this classic tennis crowd head movement going, you know, from side to side following the ball, but Zendaya is just like doesn't follow the ball at all at the end of the shot. Then from then on, you have all these kind of looks from the players looking at Tashi. So immediately you get this tension and like bad vibe between these three characters. Just a great way to kind of set up your film. Like it's just full of intrigue and full of questions to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting this, like you said, wordless, just kind of like slice of like where they are at, and then, you know, jumps back to, all right, this is where they started at. You know, they're all friends. They're all like, you know, having a good time. How do they get to this moment of just like despising each other, it seems like?
Yeah. And we mentioned it already, but I love the fact that this film is all kind of structured around this challenger match. As you say, like each set is like a different act in the film. And after that opening scene at the start of the match, like we see the two characters have completely different careers. Like, you know, we go back like 13 years. No. Yeah. After it jumps around a lot.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
Art
yes.
Donaldson, you know, has a family with Tashi, and Tashi is his coach, and their relationship seems to be kind of frosty. You know, their scenes all feel quite serious and stylistic, with some very like close shots of their bodies, you know, very sweaty bodies a lot of the time. There's some dramatic, very dramatic slow motion.
A lot of sweat dripping onto the camera.
Yeah. Then with like Patrick Zweig, Josh O'Connor's character, he's with his scenes like before the match, they're almost quite comical, where he can't pay for his room at the motel. He sleeps in his car. And there's a moment where he stares at that woman's bagel wanting to eat it at the desk. So you have these kind of two very different tennis players here, one very successful and one very unsuccessful. So when we go back to kind of the challenger match, we think this could be like sort of a mismatch, but they probably know each other because of the way like Tashi looks at them at the start. Then the film kind of goes back 13 years and the two players are playing doubles together. So then every time we go back to the challenger match, you understand a bit more of why these two characters had such different careers and why the stakes and the emotions feel more intense after each visit of the match. And I love also the fact that one short scene from the challenger match is just Patrick like smashing his racket, which is quite funny. So I really love the kind of the way this film is structured.
Yeah, that's such a great scene, because that's the end of, you know, the second set where he's just lost and Art has come back, you know, and tied everything up, which, you know, perfectly sums up that second set where now Patrick has gotten that fight with Zendaya. He's lost Tashi, and, you know, Art's kind of swooping in, you know, he's, as he puts it in that really great scene between the two of them with the churros, he's playing percentage tennis. And it kind of like sums up the difference between these guys, where like Art is somebody who will play percentage tennis. He will do everything possible to make sure that he has every advantage. Whereas, as Tashi puts it to Patrick, he's like, how is it just getting by on talent? Where he is probably, honestly, even though Art is like, has won multiple majors, he's going for a career slam. So he's obviously a very talented tennis player, more talented than any real American tennis player has been since Andy Roddick. He, like Patrick, probably is a better tennis player than him, just on terms of skill. But he doesn't have that like either like mental edge or like dedication to get to, you know, where Art gets to, and Art gets there because of Tashi, because Tashi is just like, as they put it, the most obsessive tennis fan in the entire world.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Because your sort of gauge, because there's no, the way Luca Guadagnino kind of directs this film, there's no like clear view of like who's actually better from what they're actually doing on the tennis court. your gauge is Tashi, to be honest, and just her back and forth of just like her trying to. Because what's really interesting about this film is that the three-way relationship they have is really interesting to me. This relationship triangle between the three leads is just really fascinating. Like, Art can never, make a sort of a decision, his own decision. When he says he wants to like retire after the US Open, she's like, okay. But he can't accept that. He's like, he always wants her to have the power over him. I feel like Tashi is tired of like having that sort of power over him too. And she also wants like an equal in Patrick in terms of both their kind of love affair and obsession with tennis. But the problem is Tashi also thinks Patrick's an asshole.
Yeah.
With, Patrick, he's arguably the better tennis player, as we said, and the player with the most raw talent, and he knows that too. But he doesn't have the drive for success like Art and Tashi does. With Tashi, it's all about the tennis. Tennis ultimately is her first love in this movie. By the end, you kind of realize that, as we said with the "come on" when she's shouting that at the end. Before her injury, she's just toying and kind of having fun with Patrick and Art in a way.
Yeah.
Certainly in the first half. But post-injury, it's like she's clinging on to her passion by coaching Art to be a top player, but knows deep down she really may have to. She's probably picked the wrong guy to achieve tennis greatness, but she might be like deeply unhappy at the same time if she chooses Patrick. So
and Patrick kind of knows this. Like he even kind of gives her that pitch, and she's just like, absolutely not. And then that gets into she knows she can absolutely mold Art, to the point where she knows that, okay, that's why the whole reason he's in the Challenger is so that he can go there and, quote unquote, get his confidence back. Goes up against Patrick, this old ghost from both of their past. And the way, it's so messy, but like the way that she, Patrick or Art asks, he's like, well, what we? He's like, okay, well, is this what you want me to say? I will leave you if you lose. Like, is this the only thing that can motivate you? And it's one of those things. It's like, would she not want to be with him if he loses? And I think maybe, but she's like, well, I want him to win, to the point where she ends up sleeping with Patrick, so Patrick will throw the match. So it's like so weird and just like messed up on so many levels, because he's like, oh, I'm sleeping with Patrick, but I'm justifying it because I will do this to save my marriage, which like it's so, the three of them are just so messy.
Yeah. Luca Guadagnino doesn't do clean.
No.
Art is kind of a very different character compared to like Patrick and Tashi in a way, because I feel like certainly in the present, he's lost his passion for tennis. Really, he's just very ready to retire, as he mentions himself. But you very much get that from his kind of body language anyway. He kind of has this bravado anyway. When he has this kind of little scene with Patrick in the sauna, he knows he's kind of better than him. Well, he knows he's more successful. Not that he's better, but he kind of just uses that to his advantage. But deep down, as the film progresses from that point, probably even before that as well, that just the passion just isn't there anymore, and which is just not what Tashi wants, and it's kind of what Patrick is trying to like capitalize on.
yeah, because it seems like, early on in his life, Patrick was the one giving him this like motivation for tennis, right? He was trying to like rise up and be, his doubles partner and play against him. And then he later on starts getting that from Tashi, becomes even greater. And then that starts to fade away. And I think the only way he kind of gets it back and has that incredible like last match is that he gets the motivation from Patrick once again.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one scene we haven't talked about yet. We've got to talk about it. And it's you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I really liked the three-way kissing scene in the guy's hotel room. It kind of starts off quite awkward, where the two guys are talking about the fact that Patrick teaches Art how to jerk off. And it makes you feel very kind of uncomfortable. Then when like Zendaya sits on the beds, they both like sit next to her like excited school kids. Then when they get on with it, like with the three-way kissing, it's very intense kissing as well. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Something's going on.
The score is ramping up and everything.
Yeah. You know, but Zendaya is in complete control of everything. Then when she pulls away and the two guys end up snocking each other, it gets super awkward and icky. A little bit unbelievable for me that they couldn't tell that they're kissing each other. But I
think that they could, and they just kind of were like, they were into it, a little bit.
I don't know. I'm still on the fence with that, to be honest. But I love the fact that, but what's the most interesting thing is that, but I love the fact that, Zendaya is manipulating everything here. She's got them both right under her thumb, Plus there's like no real reaction from these guys that they were just kissing each other as well, which again is kind of a little bit off for me. But at that point in the film, it definitely feels weird. But obviously seeing it again, it definitely works better. And you're just like, what the fuck? What the hell's going on?
Right. And it just, like I said, it follows that scene where like, they kind of like Art had his kind of sexual awakening by being guided by Patrick. And it's like, it's kind of implied that there's definitely something between these two guys, some feelings that maybe they don't care to admit. And then they obviously have feelings for Zendaya. And yeah, I think they kind of get swept up in that moment. And like I said, they don't really have that much of a reaction. They're still kind of like, oh, we're best friends, but we're rivals now competing for her. And then of course the next day they have that tennis match, which, Art was gonna, Patrick was gonna throw so Art could win. But then that all changes once she's like, I'll give my number to whoever wins the match.
Yeah, I think kind of on the surface as well, like going into this film from the trailers and that it very much feels like a film about like who's going to get the girl at the end. But of course it can't be that, because we know at the end that Art ends up with Tashi, Zendaya's character. So on the surface, the film is about why like Tashi chooses Art over Patrick, which is obviously very compelling in itself, but more stealthily, the film is certainly more about like the unconscious love between these two male tennis players. This sort of very sexual love, to be honest, sort of unknowing as well in a way, and kind of not the love of Tashi's affections. You get that a little bit with like the three-way kissing scene, as we just said, and just the way these two guys interact with each other. And it's not very subtle either. Luca Guadagnino doesn't really do subtlety. Not really. They know kind of each other's moves without even like talking about it, like with the warm-ups. They always feel very comfortable in each other's company. At one point, they're literally just like running after each other across tennis courts. There's that I remember that in the tennis academy when they're just having a drink, and I think Patrick is like sitting at a table, and there's a very specific shot where Guadagnino cuts and goes in closer, where Patrick literally like moves the stool closer to him.
Yeah, he's bringing the two. Yeah,
so Art sits really close, and then at the end of their conversation, literally Art takes a bite out of Patrick's biscuit.
Yeah,
it's just like,
they're just kind of chomp on each other's. Yeah, it's a lot of like I said, it's not even subtext at that point. There's a lot of that, and then there's of course that's such a good scene, with like all the back and forth between the two of them, and they're like got these very phallic shaped foods, and they're so close, and he even says like, oh, this like you pining after my girlfriend makes this even hotter for me. So it's just like once again playing on this like love triangle, these weird psychosexual dynamics that the three of them will have. But there's that scene, and then of course there's also the sauna scene, which is I think such a good scene, and that's the one time I think you really see Patrick be a little bit vulnerable, because they are kind of having these power dynamics where Art is like, yeah, I'm like one of the best in the world, and Patrick kind of like literally and figuratively comes in like swinging his dick around. And then he says something, he's like, oh yeah, like something to the kind of like, I've beaten a lot of guys that don't matter, and Patrick says, he's like, I don't matter, and it's very clear at that moment, he's just like, I still care so much about you. Don't you care about me? And Art kind of deflects at that point, and he says, not even to the biggest tennis fan in the world, talking about Tashi, saying like, yeah, even like Tashi doesn't care about you. But Patrick kind of was just like, yeah, Tashi's whatever, but like, I'm asking about you, like me and you, like we used to have something and we don't even talk anymore.
Yeah. Now we're just talking with just a towel.
Yeah. Once again, Luca's making a very sweaty scene with like barely anything, just like it's just barely covering anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very sexual film without any sex in it.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things you think about, like, oh, like this is such a sexy movie and it's like crazy sexual. There's no sex in it. There's barely any nudity. The nudity is all just like incidental, like people in the background and stuff like that. There's one scene that is almost a sex scene, but it doesn't even culminate in anything. So it's very. It's really smart, I think, in the way that it feels so like, oh wow, this is like a crazy 90s erotic thriller style movie, but it's like, no, nothing actually happens in it.
And then when you do see nudity, you're like, oh no, go away. In the changing room.
Exactly. It's not appealing at all.
Yeah. But certainly with like Guadagnino's direction, he's always very quite experimental, and there's always one aspect of each of his films that he really tries to kind of push the boundaries and experiment. And he certainly does that with the tennis stuff. The direction of the actual tennis I really enjoyed, because it never really focuses on making the actual tennis look good necessarily. It's always focusing on the characters and the characters' faces. There's all sorts of camera angles thrown in there to make each hit feel intense and powerful. Somehow Luca Guadagnino makes each tennis sequence feel very different from the last, and still keeps you like right in the middle of the action with varying degrees of success. Like sometimes you do feel like you have to duck a few times as balls fly past the camera. You're like, whoa, okay, calm down. But I feel like that's certainly a good part of his direction. But there's one scene that I feel like does go a bit too far, that isn't quite as successful, and it's all done with like the player's point of view. Like the cameras are kind of strapped to their chests, like you're kind of just thrown into a video game. I feel like that went just a bit too far for me. But overall, I feel like he does an incredible job, to be honest, with the tennis stuff.
Yeah, I think it's very impressive. Like I said, I'm a very big tennis fan, so I've like watched a lot of tennis, and this looks very good. I think I know there was a little bit of complaints about people being like, well, they CGI'd the ball, and I was like, yeah, well, unless you get actual professional tennis players, you're not going to be able to hit these things. So it makes sense, that they're doing this with CG, especially with all the insane camera angles and everything that you're talking about. Like it would be literally impossible to do that with a practical tennis ball. So I think it works really well. And I agree, like he manages to make every tennis scene different. And that's something that I think a lot of sports movies run into a problem of, is like, oh, how do we make, this tennis scene, this basketball scene, this race, whatever, different than the last one? How do we give it some variety? And a lot of them will just try and like replicate like the style of tennis that you see on TV or something, or they just won't have that much tennis. Like Battle of the Sexes, another movie I quite like, but there's not really that much tennis in that movie if you watch it. Yeah. They just kind of like don't really feature it. Whereas this features it a lot, and it's always in a different, interesting way, and it's not at all like the tennis that you would see on TV. I don't really know why they always try to replicate that, because it's like a movie can do stuff that you would never be able to see on a live match. There's no reason to just make it like that. You want to do something interesting and different that you wouldn't be able to see necessarily.
That's why I like the opening scene so much, because it kind of starts off very generic and very broadcasty, but then you have that big dynamic like push-in shot that goes past the umpire and just focuses on Zendaya, and you're like, with the really kind of techno music, and you're like, oh, okay, this is something very different. I think it's interesting, certainly the way they approached it, because I think if they were trying to do everything for real and get, obviously, I suspect, I don't know this for real, but like I suspect Guadagnino got the three leads to actually have some tennis training, obviously, but
yeah, they looked like they they knew what they were doing. Like forms like, and like I'm not the best, but I've watched enough to tell that like they had something where they were trained in like how to do like a backhand and all that good stuff.
Yeah. But I think, to actually just capture, like, I don't think it would be a very smart move to like try and get the actors to like produce like proper tennis with real balls, because I think then you're probably restricting yourself. Yes, it will probably be more authentic, but you're restricting yourself with what you can do. And it just wouldn't feel very Luca Guadagnino-y, if you know what I mean. Like, with certainly his kind of style of directing, I feel like with focusing on a subject like tennis, that's something that he can really dig deep into just from a stylistic directional point of view, rather than forget all the subtext and writing stuff that he is very good at putting onto screen. But just from a directional point, tennis is kind of something that can look incredibly dynamic. And I think going down, because I think these days CGI can get a lot of shit, but like certainly these days, but I think this is certainly an example where they're using it right in the right way. Because I think if you doing it practically, you're just very limiting yourself of what you can do, and the actors could have some very long days to try and get the right shots and stuff. So I think it's the right move.
No, I'm always saying, like, I like practical stuff, but like there's certain things there's a reason CGI exists, and CGI shouldn't be used for everything, but it should be used for stuff that doesn't make sense to do practically and to make, things, work a lot better. And this really is a great example of using CGI in a way that makes sense, that works really well for the movie. Because if you watch something like Wimbledon, the Kirsten Dunst movie, like the tennis in that is so bad. Like that's like when you watch that movie, you're like, this is like clearly actors trying to play tennis. Where it's like here, no, like I think you, even though you on a level know it's CG, you are more immersed because it looks natural. It looks a lot more real. It like is so fast paced in a way that you would never be able to duplicate.
Paul Bettany wins Wimbledon. What are you talking about? Favorite shot, Derick? What are you going for, or scene?
I mean, I think it's the scene we were talking about earlier of like, and it's tempting to go with a tennis scene because there's so many great shots in those tennis scenes, And like one that comes to mind is like when he serves like him to let him know that he slept with Tashi. But I think the real answer is that 3-way makeout, that whole scene
right.
in the hotel, and then when just Tashi kind of leans back and just smiles, and that was such an incredible shot that they used it in like all of the trailers. And it's one of those things that's like we had no context for what was happening there, and then when you see it in a movie, you're like, oh my god, that's what's happening. Like and it just totally is like, yeah, she will manipulate these guys, and like the three of them it just sets up their dynamic for the coming film, but what we've seen before in the flash forwards and then after with the rest of the movie. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do love that scene as well. My favorite scene, though, I think I got to go with the last tennis action scene. That was just really great, where Luca Guadagnino is just firing on all cylinders, pulling out all the tricks.
Yeah,
I just love it when directors just really push the boundaries and really just do something really interesting and creative. But what's interesting is most of it is really kind of cool, with like super slow motion on the players just standing around doing nothing. Anything that has any sort of movement to it is the sweat dripping off their bodies. There's some great like glass bottom floor shots, like you're kind of looking beneath the bottom of the court at them, looking up at them, and you can still kind of see the lines. That was amazing. Plus, from like a writing point of view, I like the fact that you have, as you said, the callback to Patrick giving Art the signal with his serve that he slept with Tashi. Then they have this kind of realization moment after kind of Art is, pissed off for a bit. they kind of both like smile at each other, saying like, okay, they they can't believe this girl was kind of fucked with them their whole lives pretty much, so let's just do what we love and play some incredible tennis, where the camera sort of transitions into the ball, and then when like Patrick like catches Art midair. It's like they both have recaptured their love for playing tennis with each other and one another, frankly.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and then you have the Tashi screaming out bit as well.
Yeah, such a perfect ending for this movie. I feel like it's like it's the best like looking shots in the movie, and just thematically works so well with them literally coming back together.
Yeah. See, they're all happy at the end. It's a very happy ending.
Yeah, you think he's about to smash him with that racket for a second, but no, they just hug and everyone cheers like, yeah.
So, down to business. Directing score for me for Challengers, it's really impressive. And I think, as I said, like I love all the experimental stuff from Guadagnino, but also I feel like he's really good at recognizing when to just keep the camera like still. I think he's really great at recognizing, when to speed things up and when to really slow things down with the camera direction, especially with the cutting and editing. And I think the balance of every scene is just very well judged in terms of pacing. Again, just a few moments, as I said, with some of the experimental stuff where I just think it goes too far. With the POV shot scene in particular, it just felt a bit awkward and clunky. But other than that, I think it's really, really impressive, And there's that other scene, actually, I forgot to say, is that kind of that scene between Tashi and Patrick in Atlanta when it's really windy and for some reason there's paper everywhere. And you have this kind of moment, this moment where Tashi, Zendaya's character, they're in a car park and she gets out of the car, but she was about to walk away and Patrick's like, no, your hotel is that way. She turns around and goes back to him, and they, another kissing match, if you will. But it's not like super slow-mo like Zack Snyder slow-mo, and even as slow as some of the scenes that we've already seen in the film. It's kind of like a mid-range slow-mo, and it was kind of really interesting to kind of see that different pace with that style of slow motion. Plus it ends with like a still frame. And at first, because I watched this on my Blu-ray, I was like, I thought there was a problem with my disc or something. Why is it just stopped? But no, it's a very deliberate choice of like sort of is just creating a perfect picture of just describing what this relationship is, this kind of passion between these two characters of Tashi and Patrick, but amongst all this chaos with all the wind, just kind of a great like metaphor there as well. So that's another great scene. But directing score for me, I'll probably go like a 9.3.
Oh, very nice. I obviously also was very, very impressed by the direction in this movie. All the things you talked about, I think, are absolutely spot on. And Luca also does a lot of really clever, like quick, like shots where, like you mentioned, the one where he brings the chair a little bit closer, or there's one where like you'll just see like the tennis ball like quickly goes and it goes in, and you see Patrick just like he goes on this whole tirade about like, oh, you want to get, and it was like the ball was in, we just saw this quick little shot, like it's really really well done. Like I think that the way that he chooses to like cut back and forth, and this you can always tell what time period you're in based on the way the characters look, the way they act. I think it's really, really spectacularly done. So yeah, I would give the directing in this a 9 for sure.
9. You can use decimal place if you want.
I'll give it a flat 9.
Okay, cool. Been talking to Matt too much. he's a hater of decimal places.
He hates it. Yeah, I think they get into good 0.5 sometimes, but
yeah, sure. Right, favorite lines then, Derick. They're mainly from Zendaya, to be fair, for me. We're at the start, I think, before one of the tennis matches, she says, "Decimate that little bitch." That was good. For about 15 seconds there, we were actually playing tennis. We understood each other completely. So did everyone watching. It was like we were in love. I think that's when they first meet, Zendaya, Patrick, and Art. I think when Tashi and Patrick first going out, and they kind of have their first fight. And she says, "There's plenty of girls out there who would love to be your girlfriend. Okay, you're charming, you're talented, you got a big dick. Just go be with one of them." Have you got any, Derick?
Yeah. I've got a few also from Tashi, towards the beginning too, where she says, "I don't want to be a home wrecker," and then of course that, loose background, she says, then later on she says, "I was a home wrecker." Of course there's the one I mentioned a couple times. She says she just wants to see some good fucking tennis. And then she says, "What am I, Jesus?" later on. I thought that was a really good line when he asked her to love her unconditionally. What else I got? I got also when the two of them meet her, she's like, "How often does this happen with you going off the same girl?" And they're like, "Oh, not that often." I can't remember which one of them says it, but they said, "Aren't you everyone's type?" I thought that was a good line. And then Tashi once again says, "Is that what you think I see art as, a racket and a dick?"
Yeah, I got that written down.
So a lot of good lines in this one.
Yeah. I've also got "I Still Have a Shot." Oh yeah, Patrick and Zendaya again arguing, secretly meeting up, and he says, "I still have a shot. You're 31. You have a better shot with a handgun in your mouth."
Yeah, I had that one too.
I think that was pretty harsh.
Yeah. Which is, unfortunately, tennis players do fall off pretty quickly after 30.
Right. Andy Murray. Yeah.
I do miss Andy Murray.
Yeah. Oh, and then I think a very quick line from Zendaya, I think again between her and Patrick, where they're really going at each other, arguing, and she says, "I'm taking such good care of my little white boys."
Yes, that was another good one.
That's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, another one they leaned into with the trailer because it was so good.
Screenplay score for me, it's so hard to judge. I think it's really impressive. I really love the structure of this film, kind of like structuring it all around this one tennis match. Sometimes there was a few occasions where I was like, it took me a few moments to figure out where we are at in what time period, because you're kind of you're always looking for signifiers, aren't you, with costuming and stuff. Usually for me it's the hair. What haircut do they have?
Doesn't I have like the long hair, or is it kind of like the dyed blonde sort of?
Yeah. So sometimes there isn't like an initial shot or scene where it's terribly clear, but overall it's pretty good. And I kind of just love the bravery where it ends, and the fact that it's, tennis is kind of just the backdrop here, and it's very much about this kind of love triangle, and yet the real love ultimately is their love of tennis, and their relationship is frankly getting in the way of it all. To be honest. So yeah, it's really good. I think sometimes for me, like, the sexuality between Patrick and Art is a bit too kind of on the nose early on. Like, it's just a bit, some of the acting is not believable enough, especially with that kissing scene, I think, personally. But overall, I think the script is really, really solid. Not solid, really excellent, to be honest, with kind of the themes that this film is going with. So I'll go a straight 9 for me.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think this is such an incredible screenplay. We already talked about all the great lines and how smart it is, and how it uses the structure of a 3 set match to perfectly mirror a 3-act structure. It's one of those things where it's so easy to get wrong, where you're jumping around from all of these different time periods, and like, not just like different time periods, but you're also going to like, oh, here's like the night before, here's 8 years ago, there's a lot going on, and you have to keep track of it and never feel disoriented. And it perfectly maps these two long-standing arcs onto each other in a way that is so smart, and you understand it so well. These character dynamics come across so well. Just the little things they say to each other, the little tiny beats and moments and stuff like that, I think is all perfectly done. So honestly, it's one of those movies, I don't know that I would change anything about this screenplay. I got to really give it to the screenwriter, Justin Kurtzikis, who, would go on to work with Luca again with Queer. So I For me, I got to give it a 10 out of 10. Like I can't take it. I was like, maybe I give it a 9.9 just to sound impartial, but no, I got to give it a 10.
Again, a lot of 10s this year.
Yeah.
A lot of 10s. So many previous years, just people are afraid of 10s, and we've had one for RoboCop, for Frankenstein, 2025.
RoboCop, I get it. I mean, that's a perfect movie.
Yeah, none from me. But acting, my favorite performance for me is Zendaya. I think she has all the best lines. I think this is really her film. This is the first film, as we said at the top of the show, this is her film where she can really show off what she can do. You know, she's got such great range in all the different emotions of what she's trying to show us in this film. Yeah, she's just really great. Yeah, she's my favorite performance. I think second would probably be Josh O'Connor. I think he matches up to Zendaya extremely well with those kind of verbal battles that they have, and he does bring off great asshole energy at times. And I think maybe I'm not like Mike Feist is good, but I just don't think he's on the level of the other two. Maybe it's just because he's just playing a very different character to the other two. He's certainly more subdued. If anything, maybe thinking about it, he has more of an interesting arc with the fact that he's very excitable and energetic and more very, if not more schoolboyish, teenager-ish than Josh O'Connor as Patrick. But you can really feel that kind of tired aspect of Mike Feist. And sometimes you can really see kind of that teenage quality come back into his performance towards the end of the film as well. I'm just thinking of that scene on the bed with Zendaya, and he's just like, just I want you to hold me. But I would still put him third, even though his performance is a little bit more subtle. But I think, yeah, I just think the other two are just slightly above him for me. But yeah, Zendaya is my performance.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, do you give a score, or should I go into it first?
Yeah, what's your favorite performance first? Yeah.
It's tough because, like you said, they're all so good. I think even Mike Feist for me, I think is incredible because it is a real three-hander. But I think, yeah, Zendaya is just, if I have to choose one, I think she's the standout in this movie. She's kind of the sun that everyone else is revolving around. And I think that all three of them really, especially her, do a good job of both being like, here's like me. She does a good job of being like, hey, I'm now the like optimistic 19-year-old prodigy kid, excited, then getting a little bit more jaded into college, and now she's just kind of like the mom who's just kind of like just is tired, but still has this burning passion within her, but has seen a lot more than when she was a teenager. And just kind of like the look in her eye, I feel like at any point, even if you don't see like the hair or anything, you can tell what point of the movie she's at.
Yeah, absolutely. Acting score for me, I still really like the acting here. I think it's probably the weakest element, but it's not really like the glaring weakness. They're all aspects are really, really good, but I think it's just the acting is slightly below the directing and the screenplay for me, just because it's hard, like acting with these actors like portraying teenagers, and sometimes it's not like amazing. I think certainly the last 3/4 of the film, you know, the when the film goes to like the present and all the scenes around the challengers match, that's the real like great meaty stuff. But I think it's just that kissing scene. I just like, surely they know they're kissing each other. And they must be like, ew, what's going on? But yeah, I just have a slight problem with that. But other than that, like, it's really quite brilliant acting. So I'll probably go like an 8.7 for me.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, dude, like I think this is all though great. I love it like when a movie's a good two-hander because you just get these two great performances that perfectly pair off each other. And it's even rarer to see a good three-hander where each of these characters is equally important, and they are there's not one where they're like, oh, they're more like Zendaya might be like the main performance, but these guys both also have such a relationship to each other and with her. So I think it's equal parts, all of them playing off each other. And just the fact that it's the three of them all just giving these incredible performances. And you can have a scene with any of the two of them and it works completely, or with all three and it works completely. Because I do, that's where I differ from you a little bit, is I really thought that, that kissing scene I thought that was really well done, really well acted and everything. So I mean, my only dig at this would be that other than the three of them, there's not really that much acting happening. There's not really any other performances. There's like a couple side characters and stuff, but they don't really have much to do. But that's really not the point of what the movie's doing. So I would give this a 9.5 out of 10.
Oh, wow. Cool. Right, let's add up the scores then for Challengers. Yeah, Challengers gets a very impressive 55.5.
Very nice.
Very
nice.
Good.
Coming for you, Matt. Watch out.
Do you reckon this is Guadagnino's best film? Just quickly.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say definitely. I love this movie, and it's for me, like I said, one of my favorite movies of the last few years.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely right up there. I still really love A Bigger Splash as well.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episode. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.